Hello and welcome to Creative Practice with Greg Zabel. Today we're answering the question, what are the levels of walking bass? Walking bass is a characteristic of jazz, swing music, big band music, subgenres like bebop and modern jazz, and it's just something to know if you're studying jazz. What you need for a walking bass line are 4 quarter notes in every measure. There are some extra things you could do that maybe we'll cover in a future video, but what you need is a solid quarter note drive. So we're going to talk about some of the pitch choices you could make. Now that we got the rhythm in our minds, we can assign some pitches to these rhythms. So we're going to be looking at the first 4 bars and the downbeat of the 5th bar of a blues in F. So that everybody's on the same page, we'll have 1 bar of F7, 1 bar of B flat 7, 1 bar of F7. On bar 4, I'm going to have 2 chords in 1 measure, 2 beats each. So that'll be half a bar of C minor 7, half a bar of F7, and then we'll resolve to B flat 7 on the 5th bar. Just that 1 downbeat. So level 1 of walking bass is you're going to play the root every time the chord changes. So you have to know where F is, you have to know where B flat is, you have to know where C is. All right, if you know that, we can play level 1 of walking bass. It's 4 quarter notes per measure. Sounds like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Level 1 of walking bass is nothing but the root. Level 2 of walking bass is let's add the 5th of each chord. Okay, and I'm also gonna factor into this the octaves, because the octave of the root is the same note as the root, it's just an octave higher or an octave lower. So we can alternate, we can do something like this. We go root 5th on every chord. So let's say we started here on this F. When I'm playing bass, I don't want to think too much about the theory. I know the theory and it's good to study the theory, but when I'm playing, I want to free the mind so that the music can flow freely. So what I like to do is, if I know where the F is, if I know where the root is, then I can automatically play the 5th of that chord without thinking about that the note is C. But if I put my first finger on the root, the 5th above that root will be available to me under the 4th finger, as long as I keep my bassist positioning of, it should be a whole step between fingers 1 and 4. Or I could play the 5th below that root. It'll be in the same position under the same finger, just on the next lowest string. All right, so we have this 5th, we could go root 5th, root 5th. We could go root 5th, root 5th. Or we could go root 5th, root 5th. Or we could go root 5th, root 5th. All right, I'm gonna pick one for purposes of this demonstration. I'm gonna start high, I'm gonna go low, so it sounds like, that's bar 1. Time to change chords. It's B flat 7. So I'm going to play B flat, and I don't have to think about B flat's 5th. I know that it's F, but I don't have to think about it because it exists right here if I keep my bassist positioning under my 4th finger on the next highest string. And then here's the octave, 1 more string higher under the 4th finger, so I can play root 5th, octave 5th. And then bar 3, why don't we do the same thing we did on measure 1? So we start high, go low, come back up to the 5th. So the first 3 bars sound like this. Then we're on measure 4. We have 2 chords in the bar, they're 2 beats each. So I'm going to play C and its 5th. Remember, I don't have to think about the theory. I know that C's 5th is G, but I don't have to think about that if I just put my finger on C and I play the same position, the same finger, the next string lower. There's G, and I can step down to F, the next chord in the measure. I can play its 5th. I'm not going to think about F's 5th. I have my bassist positioning, and I'm going to play my 4th finger on the next highest string. There's the 5th of F, and I can step down to B flat, which is the downbeat on bar 5 of the blues. So those 4 bars together with that downbeat sound like this. All right, now there's a bass line with a little more motion. Okay, that's nice. It's a little predictable though. And also, here's a general rule. On bars 2 to 3, you have B flat, we're playing root 5th, and the 5th of B flat is the root of the next chord we're going to, F7. So that kind of gives away the resolution. It's a little weak. You don't want to play F before you get to the F chord. So instead, what you can do is you can do root, fifth, root, root, or root, fifth, octave, root. All right? That keeps you in the land of B flat for a little longer, and then when the chord changes, there's the F, and we usher in that arrival. Rule number 1 of bass playing is play the root when the chord changes. So if we apply that to we have a similar thing happen on bars 3 to 4. We play root, fifth, root, fifth. Well, this C, that's the root of the C minor 7 on bar 4. So instead of playing that, why don't we go root, fifth, and then there's C. All right. So if we make those changes, the first 4 bars sound like this. There we go. We don't have any notes in a row. Every single beat is a different note. We're coming from a different place. We're going to a different place. That's a nice walking bass line. A lot of motion in that example. All right, we're thinking about 2 notes per chord. That's level 2 of walking bass. Level 3 of walking bass, we're going to start thinking about 3 notes, the notes of the triad. So F7, if I take away the 7, it's an F major triad, F-A-C. If I take away the 7 on B flat, it's B flat D F. If I take away the 7 on the C minor 7, it's C E flat G. So I'm going to use those. We already had the root, we already had the fifth, now we're incorporating the third. Let's hear what that sounds like. I'm going to play root third, fifth third on each chord, except on bar 4 when we only have 2 beats per chord. I'm going to play root third, and see how that resolves to the next chord, okay? So, root third, fifth. You hear it with the third in the bass line. Now we've got some color to the chord progression. That's nice. One more time. Okay, let's talk about the thirds. If you know where the root is, you know where the third is. If it's a major chord, what you can do is you can put your second finger on the root, and as long as you keep your bass's positioning, you ought to have some space between fingers 1 and 2. The major third will be under your first finger on the next highest string. There's the one instance of the minor chord here. We have C minor 7 on bar 4. If you have a minor chord, if you put your 4th finger on the root and you keep your bass's positioning, your first finger will be available to play the third on the next highest string. Sound like this. That sad minor sound. And in that same measure 4, on the F7 chord, you saw me do this. F, and instead of playing the third that lives up here, I played the third down the octave. I like that a lot. Okay, so it's good that you have to know your octave layout on the bass. It'll be down 2 strings minus a whole step. Let's do another one. So I did root third, fifth third. Let's put those in a different order. Remember, rule number 1 of bass playing is to play the root when the chord changes. So let's do root, fifth, third, root. 1, 2, here it goes. And on measure 4, I did the same thing as the previous example. That's nice. So we kind of have this, something about that reminds me of not falling down the stairs, but riding down an escalator, perhaps. Walking bass. You could divide walking bass into many other levels, but I think for now, level 4 will be incorporating chromatic walk-ups. So, rule number 1 of bass playing, play the root when the chord changes. I'm going to play F on beat 1 of bar 1. And then I'm going to take a chromatic approach to the 4 chord, to the B flat 7. So how many notes can I... Here's B flat, that's the downbeat of measure 2. So I'm going to play a half step below that would be beat 4. A half step below that would be beat 3. And there's beat 2. So I kind of have to do a little bit of math to figure that out if I'm practicing it. The more you play, though, the more you just intuit. Your ear will lead you there. You'll be able to hear that chromatic approach to B flat. So, and then what if I did a chromatic approach to F? Let's say I want to approach this F. from below. This is beat 1 of bar 3. This is beat 4 of bar 2. Work it backwards. This is beat 3 of bar 2, and this is beat 2 of bar 2. Beat 1, of course, is B flat. Play the root when the chord changes. So then my first 2 bars sound like this. Oh yeah, I've heard sounds like that before, and I love it every time. Yes. So then on bar 3, we're approaching a C minor chord. So let's C minor, we have to hit C on beat 1 of bar 4. So let's work backwards. This note is beat 4 of bar 3. This is beat 3 of bar 3. This is beat 2 of bar 3. And of course, beat 1 was that F we played earlier. So then we have this. Chromatic approach to C. So the first 3 bars together sound like. Yes. All right, then we have, even though it's a minor chord, we're going to still think about chromatic approach. So it says C minor 7 to F7. Let's do C, and the destination is F. What's a half step below F? Open E. And then on the next bar, as it happens, a chromatic approach to B flat would be the 3rd of that F7 chord. So we have this. Even though it says C minor, and here we are playing an E natural, the major 3rd of C, it's that chromatic pull, it's still legal in the context of a bass line. So that with that in mind, the first 4 bars sound like this. All right. That was an example of chromatic approaches from below, but you could also do chromatic approaches from above. It might sound something like this. You can mix and match, of course. Maybe we'll do something like this. All right. But how many different ways can you practice levels of walking bass? Thanks for watching, and have fun being creative.